First thing first, good evening to everyone. This week is a very significant week for two major reasons. Number one, it's the week of azarya dibros, which every even child understands that azarya dibros is obviously probably the most significant parasha in the Torah. And number two, and maybe even more personal for us, is the fact that this upcoming week, Be'ez Hashem, is going to be Chav Beis Shvat. What happened Chav Beis Shvat? So you think you know the answer. After this sicha, you're going to have a very, very different answer to that question. But of course, on the most basic level, Chav Beis Shvat is the day where, of course, the Rebbetzin Chayamushka, our Rebbetzin, was nostalgic, Tavshin Memches, which is a double hit for us. Number one, the fact that the Rebbetzins are our mother. And everything, Chassidim, many Chassidim, I don't know what you do personally, but many Chassidim are noyeg to see the Rebbetzins kapitel every single day as well, in addition to the Rebbe's kapitel, for the simple reason that the Rebbetzins are our mother. I personally do that as well. Even when it was Kufi test. How much more so now that it's a lot shorter. And second of all, Chav Beis Shvat is very, very relevant because it was very personal to the Rebbe. And we love the Rebbe. We're very mekusher to the Rebbe. So the fact that something happened that's so personal to the Rebbe makes it very personal to us as well. But both of these reasons, meaning both of these things, both of these links that we have to Chav Beis Shvat is seen with a whole new light after we learn this sicha. So I'm very, very excited for us to learn the sicha together now. And I'm even more excited to have the opportunity to bring about the sicha. I don't know if me and you are going to have the opportunity to bring together about it. But definitely, each one of us should definitely take time this week, especially coming up to Chav Beis Shvat, how much more so on Chav Beis Shvat itself, to really bring and to internalize, in other words, the nekuda of the sicha this week. Very, very powerful. But we're going to get there. So, as we said, this week there's two big milestones, azarya dibros and Chav Beis Shvat, which means in the world of those Chassidim, which is all of us here, which learn and koch and live and breathe Nun Aleph Nun Beis, that means that there's two sichas this week. Sicha number one is a sicha which was said on Shabbos Parshas Yisrei, Chav Shvat. Sicha number two is, of course, a combination of sichas, which was also connected to the Kingdom of Shluchos, which is very much connected to, which is all about Chav Beis Shvat, all about the Rebbetzin. And being the time is a little bit limited, we are starting a little bit late. We have just about 19 minutes left. We're going to go on speed mode. The Rebbe starts with the sicha by clarifying that there's two times in the Torah the azarya dibros is mentioned. The first time is Parshas Yisrei, this week's parsha. The second time that the azarya dibros are mentioned is the Parshas Vayeschanon, Chumash Dvarim. The difference between Parshas Yisrei and Parshas Vayeschanon is Parshas Yisrei is said by the Eibishter, while Parshas Vayeschanon, which is part of Chumash Dvarim, which famously Chumash Dvarim, of course, was entirely said by Moshe Rabbeinu. It's known Moshe Rabbeinu was giving his final speech to the Yidden, and that final speech is known as Chumash Dvarim. So in other words, Parshas Vayeschanon was said by Moshe Rabbeinu, which, by the way, is a similar idea, there's a similar difference between the first luchos and the second luchos. The first luchos, it says, eyse Elokim hema, charus ala luchos, the Eibishter himself engraved the letters onto the luchos. Very, very spiritual, very special. Moshe Rabbeinu comes down, tzischa ego, breaks the luchos, goes back up, asks for the Yidden to be forgiven. They are forgiven. Time to come back down. But this time Hashem says, it's on the house. The first ones were on the house. I paid for the first luchos. I took care of it. Now, you broke the first ones. you got to pay for it. Moshe Rabbeinu was very wealthy. Moshe Rabbeinu paid for it. He made malchus himself. So the difference between the first time Aseret Adibros are mentioned in Torah, in other words, Parshas Yisrael, versus the second time Aseret Adibros is mentioned in Torah, in other words, Parshas Vayischanon, is a similar difference between the first set of luchos, which were handwritten by Hashem, to the second luchos, which were made by Moshe. Which, of course, the difference between the Parshas are, one is said by Hashem, and one is said by Moshe. Now, what's the question? The question is, obviously, Torah is not looking for two different ways to tell us the same exact message. That would be a waste of words, right? Obviously, Torah is trying to teach us two different lessons. Meaning, Torah mentions Aseret Adibros in Parshas Yisrael, and Torah mentions Aseret Adibros in Parshas Vayischanon, is obviously coming to teach us two completely different types of eyse, which a hint to what the difference in the Hira would be is in the fact that one is given by Hashem and one is given by Moshe. So to understand, or in short, the Rebbe said of sicha in short again, what's the Hira from each time that the Torah talks about Aseret Adibros? The Rebbe starts off by introducing 3 coins. I say coins, why? Because a coin is double-sided. A coin has 2 sides. So there's 2 sides to each coin. And the Rebbe is going to introduce us 3 coins. Another 3 topics that have 2 sides to them, 2 aspects to them. And then we're going to see how that ties into the sicha. Let's start. The first thing is Torah. Torah has 2 parts to it. Not parts, 2 aspects. On the one hand, what is Torah? Torah is completely one with Hashem. Does Torah have anything to do with the world? The answer is absolutely not. On the contrary, it says Alpaim Shana Kadma Torah La'elam. It says that the Torah actually was created 2,000 years before the world was created. In other words, before Hashem even created the concept of a cow, and before Hashem created the concept of an ox, there was already Torah. Not Torah that talks about cows and oxes, but there was already a Torah. Meaning, Torah is not a book which talks about oxes and cows. Rather, Torah is something which is completely one with Hashem. At the same time, the second aspect of Torah is the Torah was nislabish, which means that now that the world was created, the Torah came down into the level of the world. So now the Torah does talk about cows and oxes. Now the Torah does discuss different material things. And is yes mislabish in sechel enushi, does come down to the level of human logic and understanding. Although Torah is one with Hashem, which is beyond logic, Torah came down into logic, meaning it could be understood by human beings, which is a very big downgrade for Torah. So there's 2 aspects to Torah, and they're both true, as we'll see. One aspect of Torah is the fact that Torah is way beyond the world. Like we said, the Torah existed 2,000 years before the world even came into existence. At the same time, Torah came down into the world, but not stam into the world, but into the details of the world, into the level of the world, discussing different episodes of the world. To the point that Torah even talks about scams and theft and murder. Torah talks about very low things. That's how low Torah goes. Second coin. When a Yid learns Torah, meaning based on these 2 aspects of Torah, we understand that when a Yid comes to learn Torah, there are 2 different aspects here. Aspect 1 of a Yid learning Torah is a Yid has tremendous bittul. A Yid understands, I'm learning Hashem's Torah. Which means I'm so bottled to when I come to learn Torah, what am I compared to Torah? Who am I to even understand Torah? You know what Torah is? The Torah is so precious to you. And me, a physical human being, is going to come and understand what Torah is saying. Who am I, Bechlal? Torah is so great. Especially, the Rebbe points out, when a Yid thinks about the fact that it says that anyone who sits down to learn Torah, The truth is that while he's learning Torah, Hashem is sitting in front of him, and Hashem is reading in front of him the Torah. In other words, Hashem is sitting in front of him. Imagine you're sitting in front of the Rebbe, and you're expected to learn a shtickle Gemara in front of the Rebbe. You're sitting in Yechidus in the Rebbe's room. The Rebbe is sitting facing you, and you're sitting facing the Rebbe, and you're expected to sit down and learn a shtickle Gemara. Would you be able to focus? I don't know about you guys, but for me, I would feel such an awe that, like, how focus. I feel like I'm in the presence of the Rebbe. So when we think about the fact that when I sit down to learn Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yeshiv V'Koyda Kenegdei, who am I to even understand? Torah is so great. I'm connecting to such a deep level of Hashem, in other words, that I'm nothing compared to this level. That's on the one hand. That's on the one hand the experience that we're supposed to have when we learn Torah. At the same time, just to add to that one last quote, very geschmack, it says, just like over there by Matan Torah, originally when the Yidden were receiving the Torah, the Yidden had tremendous awe and fear and shivers and sweat. In other words, like, wow, like the Eibush just giving us the Torah. So too says the Gemara, so too says the Gemara, Afkan. Also now, when a Yid sits down to learn Torah, an ordinary day, he said in Zal, you open up a Gemara, a sicha. I guess I didn't come here to waste time, yeah? If you want to waste time, just leave the room. Chaval, everyone's sitting down getting involved. What are you doing here? So one more time, when a Yid sits down on an ordinary day, opens up a Gemara in Zal, or whatever, the Gemara says the way we're supposed to experience it, and this is true, meaning this is what's demanded of us, is to experience what he didn't experience from Matan Torah. In other words, that like like this is Pashut Teres Hashem. This is so awesome. This is so great. It's so beyond me. That's all on the one hand. On the other hand, when a Yid comes to learn Torah, on the other hand, when a Yid comes to learn Torah, a Yid is supposed to understand what he's learning. I open up a shtickle Gemara, my brain has to understand what's being read. It has to be logical to me. And on the contrary, if I don't understand what I'm reading, it's actually bitul Torah. Right? One more time. If I don't understand what I'm reading, it's actually bitul Torah. I'm sitting down, I'm learning a shtickle Gemara. I'm not really understanding what I'm saying. I can't even make a bechas Torah on that. Meaning, Torah has to come down to my logic, to my level of understanding, which is the exact opposite of what we just spoke about. We just spoke about how I'm so batal and therefore. But on the other hand, on the contrary, I'm supposed to understand. It's supposed to come down to my level. I'm supposed to appreciate it. Now, same thing says the Rebbe goes regarding Dvar B'Tachtonim. There are two aspects of Dvar B'Tachtonim. One aspect is which level of Hashem are we trying to bring down into the world? When a Yid is trying to make a Dvar B'Tachtonim, the level of Eibishter that we're trying to bring down into the world is the Eibishter himself, meaning the deepest level of Hashem. On the flip side, to which level of the world we want to bring down Hashem? The answer is to the lowest level. Yeah? Which level of Hashem, which level of the world I want to bring down Hashem to? The answer is to the lowest level. That when I'm walking down the street or whatever, Hashem is present there as well. Which is, mamish, two opposites. The deepest level of Hashem to the lowest level of the world. Now the obvious question is, on which mode are we supposed to operate? Mode 1 or mode 2? Are we supposed to connect to the Torah the way it is beyond the world? Meaning that when we sit down to learn, we feel this bittul. Meaning that when we're walking down the street, we're just thinking about the deepest level of Hashem. Or should we think about the Torah the way it comes down to the world? In a way that I can understand it and it fits with my seichel. And in a way that I see, and in a way that I'm living in the world, in the lowest parts of the world. Which mode am I supposed to live in? The obvious answer is both. What does both look like? And this is really the nakudah of the sicha. What does both look like? The answer is that at the same time that I'm sitting down to learn Torah in a level of seichel that makes sense to me, meaning I'm sitting down to learn Torah on a level that me as a human being could appreciate Torah. In those very moments, it's clear to me that this is Torah Hashem. It's clear to me that this Torah is Hashem's Torah. And at the same time that I'm involved in doing small things in the world, I'm going to do laundry, I'm going to Stop and Shop to buy a banana, I'm going to do regular mundane acts. It's clear to me that even these small acts are my way of connecting to Atzmus Umahos, to the deepest parts of Hashem. In other words, we're not looking to just connect to Hashem, and we're not looking to just live a life in this world. We're looking that in our day-to-day life in this world, side day-to-day life learning-wise, a regular day, I'm reading words, I'm learning words. And side day-to-day life in my mundane life, I'm going to do laundry, like I said, I'm going to whatever, do regular things. I should feel, and I should experience the fact that the deepest levels of Hashem are present with me in these moments. Which is a tremendous, tremendous chiddush when we think about it. And of course, in a sense, this is exactly what Moshiach is all about. Moshiach is all about the eyse in the lowest levels. The eyse being found specifically in our day-to-day life. And not just the eyse, but the deepest parts of the eyse, which we're not going to elaborate so much about that now. Now, who gives us the ability to do this in this generation? The answer is Moshe Rabbeinu. But we skipped one stage, which is, how does this tie back into the parsha? What gives us the koyach to operate on mode number 1? The answer is the azarya dibros of Parshas Yisrael. What gives us the ability to operate on aspect number 2? The answer is the azarya dibros of Parshas Vayeschanan. Meaning, Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who gives us the tools and the ability to really be able to internalize Hashem's messages into our practical life. And not just to be inspired individuals which basically stop being ourselves because we're so inspired. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who gives us the ability to bring Hashem's messages into our personal life, onto our level. All of this being said, says the Rebbe, in our generation, the practical takeaway in our generation, so I'm not going through the hayra yet, but just on a practical level, what all this means to us is that we are expected to be able to combine these two opposites. But who is the one who gives us the strength to be able to combine these two opposites? The answer is Moshe Rabbeinu of every generation. Meaning, our Rebbe is the one who gives us the ability to be able to connect to the deepest parts of Hashem, but on our level. Which we have to elaborate a lot what that means, but we don't have so much time. Now, this is all connected very much to Parshas Mishpatim. How? It says, Ve'ela mispatim ashatasim lifneim. What does that mean? So Rashi right away says, just like the azarya dibros were all given from Hashem directly, that same way the mishpatim, meaning the logical mitzvahs, come from Hashem directly. Meaning that Hashem, the deepest levels of Hashem, the same level of Hashem which pronounced Anochi Havai Elokecha, the deepest level of Hashem, in other words, Hashem comes down into the level of mishpatim, into the level of seichel. Mishpatim represents the idea of seichel, meaning mitzvahs which are logical. So the deepest levels of Hashem come down into the level of mishpatim, into seichel, which is mamash the nikud that we've been talking about the whole time. It's tremendous bittul, but the way it comes down into my life. Now the Rebbe wants to connect all this to Yud Shvat and to Chav Shvat. Shvat is the 11th month of the year. The number 11 represents Hashem the way He is beyond the world, what we call the aspect number 1. Yud Shvat, the number 10 in other words, represents the idea of the world. 10 Sfira is Seder Shtal Shalus. So Yud Shvat represents the way the 11, the level higher than the world, comes down into the level of Yud, into the level of 10, into the world. So in other words, what's the whole vort, according to this sicha now, what's the whole vort of Yud Shvat? The whole vort of Yud Shvat is that the higher level than the world comes into the world. The 11 comes into the 10. Chodesh Shvat, which is the 11th, goes into the Yud, which is Yud Shvat. Or even higher than that is when we go from Yud Shvat to Yud Aleph Shvat. So we're in the 11th day of the 11th month. Which, what does that represent? That represents that the Mekabel, meaning the world, became so close to the Mashpia, meaning to the level of Hashem which is higher than the world, to the point that it itself went beyond its nature, went beyond its Agbalis. Meaning, in other words, what is the number 11? What does Yud Aleph Shvat really represent? Which, by the way, for those Siddhim which are Medayik in the sichas, the Rebbe says it very clearly in the next sicha of Chav Shvat. But for those Siddhim which are Medayik in the sicha, it's clear that Yud Aleph, the Rebbe says it clearly also, that Yud Aleph Shvat represents, of course, the beginning of a whole new stage, which is our Rebbe's Nesias. What does our Rebbe's Nesias represent? We'll see it more clear in the next sicha even more, but just the Nakud of it we already see now. The answer is the way the Mekabel becomes Mashpia, the way the 10, which is the world, itself grows to the higher level of Yud Aleph. So now it's not just the Yud Aleph month, not just the 11th month, but it's the 11th day of the 11th month, meaning it's where the Mekabel, the day, becomes itself to the level of 11. Which aspect is that? Yud Aleph Shvat, meaning 11, 11. Which luchos is that? The first or the second? So the answer is a very interesting answer. It's the Parashas Yisroi, the way it comes after Yisroi and Vayeschanon. Usually we look at it as two parashas. Yisroi and Vayeschanon. One's Hashem, one's Moshiach. Here we have a twist. There's three parashas. There's Yisroi, which is Hashem. There's Vayeschanon, which is Moshiach. And then we read Yisroi again next year. That Yisroi, which comes after Yisroi and Vayeschanon, that third level is the level of combining Yisroi and Vayeschanon together, which is represented in the day of Yud Aleph Shvat, the 11th of the 11th month. I wish we would have more time to unpack what all these things mean, but at least this is the Nakuda. The practical Eirah that the Rabbi leaves off with this sicha, and then we're going to quickly go over to do at least one Nakuda from the other sicha. The practical Eirah that Rebbe leaves off with this sicha is, first of all, that a Yid Pashat has to learn Torah. Very, very down-to-earth Eirah. A Yid Pashat has to learn Torah. And in what way of learning Torah? In a way that a Yid uses his 10 keches and nefesh to Pashat sit down and learn. Hakil, as we say, huh? To Pashat use his 10 keches and nefesh to Pashat learn Torah. The Rebbe finishes off with some more heroes. But I'm going to go to the next sicha very quickly. We said we're going to speak about what's the Chav Beis Shvat, right? Says the Rebbe that there's three. Says the Rebbe, the Rebbe points out that there's three tkufos. One tkufa is the Friedrich Rebbe's Nesias, which took place until Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud. The second tkufa is the beginning of our generation, our Rebbe's Nesias, which is, of course, Yud Aleph Shvat, Tavshin Yud Aleph. That second tkufa goes until Chav Beis Shvat, Tavshin Memches. The third tkufa begins Chav Beis Shvat, Tavshin Memches, meaning Chav Beis Shvat, Tavshin Memches is the beginning of a new era in the coming of Moshiach. What? What is it? And the Rebbe explains. This is fascinating. You remember, it was the year of the Ishtahus of the Rebbe, which is Memches, 90, which is Memches, 88. Then the Kud is like this. Let's for a second think about it. We're the whole time, let's use our brain. Okay, we'll go a little bit deep. We're the whole time talking about combining the two levels together, right? The two aspects. Moshe, Yisroi and Vayeschanon. Hashem and Moshe. Torah the way that's higher than the world, Torah the way that's in the world. A Yid the way he's batal, the way he has seichel. Dir b'tachtein the way Hashem is, the way the deepest level of Hashem, but the way kind of right. We're the whole time talking about combining these two. Now the Rebbe is going to point out that there's three parts to the process of combining these 2 points together. So you see how practical the Rebbe is taking this is a very deep idea, but the Rebbe is taking it so practical. The first step is when I have an 11 and a 10, meaning Yud Shvat. Because Shvat is the 11th month, right? And Yud is Yud Shvat, is 10. Meaning, when the Mashpia comes to the Mekabel, or in other words, when the level of Hashem is revealed, and it comes down into the level of the world. So step one is that there's a world. I walk into the world. What do I see? The answer is, Elakos is also there, but it's more beischachus. The most dominating level that I see is the worlds. Elamai, it's the worlds, the way Hashem is revealed in the worlds. So I walk around and I see ice cream, I see tables, I see people. Now I know that Hashem is inside every person. I know that Hashem is inside every piece of ice cream. That's what Yud Shvat accomplished. Yud Shvat, meaning up until Yud Shvat, or in other words, the generation up until Yud Shvat, the stage up until Yud Shvat was that the number 11 came down into the level of the world. What started Yud Aleph Shvat? Yud Aleph Shvat became 11:11. What's 11:11? Meaning Yud Aleph Shvat, the 11th day, the 11th month. What started then is that the world became so refined that now when I walk in the world, what do I see? I don't see the world anymore. Lehefech. I see the Mashpia. I see the 11th. It's like a Bavaro, which is very, very inspired. The most noticeable thing about him is that he's inspired. You don't see the character, you don't see his personality, you don't see his humor. The only thing which you see is that he's very inspired and very intense and he's doing what the Rebbe wants, which is a very high level. It's a very deep level. It's the level of 11. Meaning that the most dominating factor here is 11. Is the Mashpia, is the Eibishter. So to say these two tkufos in the lashon of the sicha that we just learned before, right? There's a level where I come to learn Torah, and the most obvious thing for me is the seichel of the Torah, which is probably how most of us experience it, right? We open up a Gemara, the most obvious thing is what the Gemara is saying. In the back of our head, we know that there's an 11, which is the fact that Hashem is in the Torah. The next step is, a Yid comes to open Torah and he knows one thing. This is Torah Hashem. Like Rebbe of the famous story. He would open up a Gemara, and the moment you'd have a Geshmak, he would close the Gemara and open up a Chassidus. He would open up Chassidus, the moment you'd have a Geshmak and what he's learning, he would close it, open up a Nig. Why? He says, we learn Torah for Kabbalah. We learn Torah to connect to Hashem, not to enjoy the seichel of it. That's the extreme of the 11. It's not about the 10. Now we both understand the chisara that each way has. When I'm too focused on the 10, Hashem becomes on the back burner. When I'm too focused on the 11, it's amazing. Hashem is full force, but it's not really going down to the level of the tachton, to the 10. So what's the ultimate? The ultimate is when we reach the number 22. What's unique about the number 22, or in other words, Chav B'Shvat, it's 11 times 2, representing such a high level, such a deep level. It's Yud Aleph, which represents Keser, meaning the one which is higher than Ishtalshul, is higher than the 10, higher than Chachma, which is Keser, times 2, meaning such a deep level in the Elokos that's able to combine both the 10 and the 11th in a way that the 10 remains 10, meaning that the Tachton remains like a Tachton, or in the example that we said, like the Bachar remains with his personality, or in the example of the Gemara, I still understand the Sicha of the Gemara, but at the same time, it's in such a way that the 11 is also fully in 11. Meaning, I'm connecting to Hashem on such a deep level that at the same time that I'm able to maintain myself, I'm also able to connect to the deepest level of Hashem, which is really ultimate Dir B'Tachtonim. When the highest level possible comes down without compromising on its level, it comes down into the lowest level possible, and the lowest level is still low, the highest level is still high, and they connect together. In other words, the tachton itself, the way it is a tachton, is able to handle and be a kli for the elder. Says the Rebbe. Now, okay, we all understand, just to think about it, we're almost done, this is like Mama's second last sentence. We all understand that we all want to bring Moshiach, right? Hello? Now we all want to bring Moshiach, right? Now we all understand that in order to bring Moshiach, we have to understand what Moshiach is. Obviously, step 1, which is 11 going into the 10, is a good level, but it's not Moshiach itself. It's a good preparation, but it's not Moshiach itself. Step 2, which is becoming an 11, where the Elyon is very big Gilui, is also a good preparation for Mashiach, but it's not Mashiach itself. On the other hand, the third level, which is 11, the way it comes down into 10, meaning the Tachton remaining a Tachton, while the Elyon remains an Elyon, but they merge together, so the highest level of Elyon reveals itself and connects to the lowest level of Tachton, that is Dira B'Tachtonim. That is a Dira, Lo Yisbarach B'Tachtonim. It's a Dira, the Tachton becomes a place where the highest level is revealed. Now, says the Rebbe, guess what? Now that we all understand that this is what Moshiach is, here comes the bomb. Bachram, don't miss this out. Here comes the bomb. This is a midrash chiddush. Says the Rebbe, Chof Beis Shvat Tafshin Memches was the beginning of a Tkufa Chadasha. Was the beginning of a new time period in history. A new time period in the Galus of Moshiach. What is Tkufa Chadasha? The answer is 22, which is this third level that we've been talking about for the past few minutes. In other words, the Rebbe learns the Pashat Beruchnius and even Pashat Begashmius. There is a very special time period that started Tafshim Memches Chof Beis Shvat. Now, this is something which only a Rebbe could say. Me and you cannot guess these kind of things. The Rebbe, which sees, of course, the Lakus, and sees, of course, the way Hashem sees the world. God, I feel bad. I know it's a little bit. I know it's a little bit late and a little bit hyper. But this is so mind-boggling. I mean, this is what it means to live Mashiach. To understand the period that we're in. We're in such a deep reality that the Rebbe is introducing us to. I feel bad for you to miss it. So listen for a moment very carefully. Take your attention for 30 more seconds just to internalize this verse. The Rebbe learns. Don't look at the clock for a second. Think about the fact that we're talking about real things. You know. This is the real deal. This is life. This is real life for a second. Listen. The Rebbe says, since Chof Beis Shvat Tafshin Memches, it's a Tkufa Chadasha, spiritually and physically as well, a new time period started, where the deepest levels of Hashem can be revealed and merged together with the lowest level of this physical world, which is something which didn't start earlier in history. It was an avodah which was impossible to accomplish earlier before in history. And it started Chof Beis Shvat Tafshim Memches. So right now, we're in the Rebbe calls it Tkufa Chadasha, but what kind of Tkufa Chadasha? It's high gears of actual eyse Mashiach taking place in the world. So Chaver, l'chaim livracha, I don't know if you're going to bring with anyone in the next few days, but if you are, ask them to really bring with you. I'm making an announcement about the Rabbi. Ask them to bring with you about this Tkufa Chadasha.